Damn, about gangs of New York, I almost forgot. My sister came back from France very recently, and so she has brought back something. My 1875 British made top hat. It is my dating. I've thought literally the exact same in terms of shape of the crown, brim, curving off the brim, trimmings, fur, whatever. Photographed, mint condition like that one in the, I think it was the Victoria Albert Museum on the photographs, and I examined back in the day, before even purchasing it, I had examined a lot of photographs, of modern photographs of original top hats, if that makes sense. And the one, and even from fashion plates, drawings, illustrations of that era, and really it is my dating back then, and having redated it since, it is most probably from 1875. I would say not really possible before 73, which would be very avant-gardist. And perhaps it is very hard to know, because sometimes it was still made to the 1890s, especially by more conservative and or old-fashioned gentlemen. So anyhow, that is the original box. I purchased that in 2014 when I was 8 and 10 upon the American eBay, but the top hat is British, I think, and it was only $200, which is very cheap for a hat that fits me, a modern hat size, that antique, in immaculate condition for something of that era. The inside is damaged, but what we expect, come on. And with the original box, the price was, I mean, it's too good to be true. I was only looking for top hat. I mean, this is super, it was already super rare, and I'm getting more rare by the hour because other people purchase them. Again, this is silk and plush, so not manufactured anymore. And I want to show it for the gangs of New York to show what I was actually talking about. I have not actually worn that hat ever. I mean, I've tried it on and taken photographs of it many times, and it does fit. But I have not worn it as part of going out with it and all, ever, because I was afraid to damage it and all. Anyhow, I will have to wear it because the silk, after having kept it so long, although I air it often, it is very protected in there. It has to be stored like that. This would damage the crown. People store it like that, but this is stupid. And I also added a scarf. The scarf is from my grandfather. So that is the beauty. And see that trimming. That I will explain how it is made. By George. This is a very fragile gossamer top hat. So how that is made is, again, to create a gossamer wool. They then create the top. They stick the top onto the wall ergo that it looks impeccably flat. I'm certain this is gossamer and this is very lightweight. So I know it is gossamer, and thus I know it is only a one ply. I think we're only making them out of one ply, surely. And actually the gossamer can be seen. I guess this is the I'm not very sure. I learned all that I'm telling from top hats from Wikipedia. Top hat page, very instructive, and also Henry hats, and also especially the guide to buying a vintage top hat by Wolfgang, something Wolfblad, a British chap with his parents from Japan, and he had made an entire guide, and he knows a lot about hats, and he collects antique ones, and he was the one explaining most details. Now, I guess this is the gossamer. Yes, I guess I'm touching it right now. So I will explain how to make it. So to do it like that, then to make the brim. So the brim is much denser, I can feel. If the entire hat was made like the brim, it would be relatively heavy. The brim is 4 layers. This is what Wikipedia and the Guide to Buying a Vintage Top Hat explained. And then they add the plush, they add the shellac on the brim, then the plush. They will do the same procedure for that part and this wool. But below the brim they add a special type of wool which has a name, merino wool, and it was traditionally dark green. I think this tradition started in the 1830s, probably before, but it became a tradition, sort of a thing that more and more people did. They kept it dark green, at least in the France, Britain, and because the French liked the British fashions, they did it the same way. And the American hats, it was usually green, like dark green. I think the color must have shaded it slightly with time, simply. I think it is a very thin merino wool. But sometimes it is black, probably more for once as after the evening and more morning, whatever. And then they add the trimmings, which are Petersham. On antique ones like that, there will be Petersham silk, which is hardly produced anymore, only in Japan. And this is silk-plush, produced in France. Or it was produced in France. It was only ever produced in France. So never anywhere else. And the secrets died with the industry, unfortunately. So, inside, one can see it has some sort of hay, or straw, or some sort of wool. They're probably trying to make it smaller. Perhaps somebody, either his head decreased in size, but I guess that is very rare. So most likely what happened was, either it was not made to measure and he purchased something that was not the proper size, and so you then ask the hatter or another hatter to decrease it, that they would remove the headband and add that straw. And or he purchased it second hand, got it second hand, third hand, whatever. Perhaps inherited it or whatever. So, and then a sign that these, a good thing about the antique ones, and showing how fragile they are and were not very meant to be repaired, is that the silk inside the lining and antique ones is very, very thin, to the point that almost always, especially from those dating from pre-1920, it is so long ago, that even if hardly worn, simply from having existed for so long, it literally dies, the silk dies. This is for two reasons: because it is very old, because it is not a good quality silk. In the 1870s, they started making satin silk. I already talked about that in another video. So it is basically a genuine silk made from silkworm, but they had invented machines so that it could be made faster, whatever. And at the end of the day, the silk was much cheaper in price, but also in quality. And so that type of silk, I think, after 100 years, surely simply disintegrates, even if kept within the best conditions. And as a proof of that, before that invention, top hats from before the 1870s, surely, like the genuine ones, like top hats from the gangs of New York era and before, if lined in silk, it will obviously be genuine silk. And thus I have seen many original examples whereby the silk has survived, and the silk is in much better condition. So this is a very thin silk, but on modern reproductions, even honey hats, the quality is not that standard. What they do is, first of all, the hand stitching is usually not as fine. This is all made by hand, assembled by hand, made mostly using chemical processes, but painted on by hand. You know, they got the shellac, which is the varnish, called the shellac, and they put the fur on by hand, so on, and they stitch every stitch by hand normally. Even that headband that is stitched to the gossamer, I guess, is done so by hand, or is it a false stitch and they actually simply glued it? I mean, it is glued anyhow, but there is a stitch there, and it goes from here to there on that top hat. So it is glued, the two parts of the headband glued together here. I mean, it is one part, but it goes like that, so the circle is glued here, and then there is a stitch. I don't know if it's actually stitched to the gossamer. I think not. I think this is not very possible, so it is probably decorative and to stick better onto the head. I'm actually going to wear it for the first time in 3 years. Ooh.